Welcome everybody to our first Get on Our Level podcast. This first podcast, episode 1, if that's what you want to call it, is our story and our background. So just to get everything kind of started with this whole podcast thing, the idea of us doing this is to expand on some of the things, the ideas, the principles that we do with our training, and instead of just piecing it together with hashtags and series of videos, actually dive in and get deep with what exactly some of these things mean. As of right now, we have over 20 potential first podcasts. I'm not sure how this will go. I'm sure it'll evolve over time, but we're going to take this information and hopefully our people will take the time to listen and get a full understanding of some of the principles. Also, a lot of the things that we do, we see in other areas, other places. I always call them copy-paste gyms or facilities. And if we're going to write the book, we might as well publish the book. So this podcast is going to be for you copy-paste people. I'm just going to roll it all out for you. And why would we even think about doing that? Just roll it all out and just show you how it's done. Well, how you do things will always be more important than what you do. If you don't put the time in to create things based off of the science and the data collection that you probably aren't even doing to improve your program, doesn't matter. I can hand you the book. It's not going to work because you don't put in the effort. And Get on Our Level, it's all about the effort. It's all about the how. It's all about the work. There are no shortcuts. Bottom line, you don't want to put the time in. It takes a long time. You're trying to take shortcuts. Keep copy-pasting, you'll always be behind. So let's go ahead and get started. The first episode of the Get on Our Level podcast, episode 1, our background, our story. And our story really kind of starts my freshman year in college. I was at Anderson University and wasn't there very long. I left in my first season because I wanted to get back to my girlfriend, who's now my wife of 10 years. And the love of football versus what I had long term there just wasn't worth it, so I had to get back to Dayton. When I got back to Dayton, worked some jobs, labor jobs. I planned on getting back into college. I went to college that winter. At that time, Janelle's dad was actually a basketball coach at Troy Christian, and family friend was a wrestling coach. Wrestling coach was also a football coach, and everybody knew that's what I wanted to do. My whole life goal was to win state championships and be a varsity football coach. So I got back, applied, got a junior high coaching position, and I would show up every day to kind of help out in the weight room. Well, help out in the weight room turned into I was running the weight room, and we started the strength and conditioning program at Troy Christian High School. Ended up holding workouts that first summer, would condition the football team, do weights, because as a football coach, I thought if we're going to have any chance, if we're going to win, if we're going to compete, we got to be in the weight room. And there was a void that nobody was filling, so I placed myself in that void to try to help the team. That season, I was a 8th grade and 7th grade defensive coordinator. The next season, I was moved up to the varsity level. I was an assistant coach. Continued working with the weight room in the off season. The coach at the time, my mentor, Doc Amlin, encouraged me to go get bigger, faster, stronger certified. So I actually had some meaning behind what I was even doing. I got that certificate, got down with the form on everything, and started kind of piecing together my own little speed conditioning program specific to our football team. I stayed in that strength and conditioning position and was a defensive coordinator at Troy Christian up until 2008. During this time, I would take on multiple sports. Not many kids were really interested outside of the football. The football interest grew, and we ended up having our strength and conditioning Monday through Fridays. I think it was 3:20 to 5:20, 5 days a week. And then I showed up in the mornings for the kids that were in season that still wanted to get a workout in. And I was paid about, my first 2-3 years, I was paid $850 a year to show up 5 days a week for 2 hours a day, and then in the mornings. Nobody made me do that. I just wanted to provide that because I wanted to win games. My big goal was to move up to the head coaching position sometime down the road and just dominate high school football. That was my whole purpose, and I thought that the weight room was very important to that. And so that the weight room was a dimension of football. And so as far as I knew, I was just all in on the football thing. Little did I know we were building a business that would launch about 8 years later. So I finished my Troy Christian strength and conditioning, eventually got to a paid position. They ended up paying me like $2,000 a quarter. Every quarter, they gave me a budget. I ran a website, troychristianweightroom.com, very similar to how Vargo Trained is run right now, but with the technology of 2004, 5, and 6, which was pretty much all websites and email. We had 1,000-pound club just like we do now. We had the top power cleans, top 40s, like all that stuff. So really, what we do now is very similar to what we did then. When you look at the shell, but when you look at all the little bitty details, we're totally different. We don't operate nearly like we did back then when it comes to training. So 2007, 2008 was a kind of a transition time. I was a personal trainer. I worked at a couple of different gyms, Moore's Nautilus, Bally's, and there's another place, maybe Neo Limits or something. All gyms where you buy a membership and then you got to up pay for a trainer. I lasted less than 48 hours at every one of those places because I could not stand the upsell on, well, if they want to use dumbbells, they got to pay more. If they want some nutrition advice, they got to pay more. It just, the industry and the setup is just rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't feel like we were really in it to help people. And every gym I went to, it was kind of that way. Then I ended up at Club Champions in 2007-ish. Still strength coach at Troy Christian at this time, still doing the football thing, still going to college. Ended up down there at Club Champions for a little bit. They pushed ISSA certification, so that's where I got my ISSA certification. Some guy, I think his name was Brent, was kind of like the guy that helped me out with the training. This is Pacifico, Larry Pacifico's gym, his original gym. Maybe not his original. To my knowledge, it was before whatever they're doing right now. It was right there on Dixie. Didn't stick around there too long. Ended up getting a job at Effects In-Home Personal Fitness, and this is where a lot of things started turning. Effects In-Home Personal Fitness, high-end clients, I guess, that they paid a lot of money for training at their house, on site, and I hated it. I was making over $50 an hour. Maybe it was $50 an hour. But the excuses, the complaining. I remember sitting in a lady's living room once, and after doing 5 sit-ups, just complaining about vertigo and the room spinning, and I was just like, I'm done. I quit training in 2008, 2009-ish, or maybe it was 2009, 2010. And then at that time, we started getting a couple athletes. There's a kid from Tip City. They saw some of the records from football. He played the same position I played, and Janelle had his mom as a client with Effects. She was also a trainer, and she wanted me to help train him as a defensive end for football, and I said no. Actually said no 2 or 3 times because of my experience with training people. And after I was bugged a couple more times, I said, okay, I'll do it. And I showed up, and we started kind of doing things like I did at Troy Christian. Progress monitoring, data, before and after, all that stuff. Put them through the program, tracked reps, and we saw pretty good progress. At that time, we also picked up another client, Zach Blair, quarterback at Ball State now. Used to go to his house. His dad was actually on staff with me at Northridge when I was defensive coordinator at Northridge, and he asked me if I knew anybody that was good with speed training or anything, and I said, yeah, me. And so I started working with him, and then we had Darlene Reinhardt, who was actually a family member from Tip City, worked some speed work with her, and things just kind of, by word of mouth, we started training a couple people here and there. It really wasn't much of any income aside from maybe a little extra money to go out on Friday night and actually like spend money. But I'm still on the coaching path at this time, 2010, 2011. Then I got connected back to a Troy Christian guy, athletic director, Mike Coots. He was an assistant when I was an assistant. He was an assistant when I was a coordinator. He's the one that created the strength and conditioning position at Troy Christian to get me paid for what I was doing. He's the one that gave me a budget. And I actually trained his first two boys when I was the strength coach. The third boy was a junior or a senior when he called me up, and he was a track runner, also played football, and he wanted me to come on in and see if we could do some speed training with the school. And so we sat down, we worked out a price, and at like 5 or 5:30 in the morning, 2 days a week or 3 days a week, we were up there at Troy Christian doing speed work. And the group was just about 5-6 people on a regular basis. So what came out of that group was a freshman soccer player, Lauren Peters, very important piece of our whole company history and why we are where we are. She saw some speed improvements, and just so happened that her dad was this girls soccer coach, and then he wanted to go ahead and do this at the team level. So now I believe at this time I'm at Dayton Christian High School as a football coach. We ended up going undefeated that year. First team to go to the playoffs. Our defense, I was defense coordinator, we gave up the fewest points in a season in school history, and we also had most shutouts. We also had Heath Harding, which is the biggest piece. He ends up going to Miami. He's slated right now to go play corner in the NFL. So he was a big piece of the success in that season. But I'm coaching there and working with the Troy Christian soccer girls, and then we start to get a client base off of that because the Troy Christian speed training stopped. We still had the Troy Christian soccer girls, but now there was a little bit of an interest at Troy Christian outside of just working with the teams. And then the tip kids that we mentioned earlier, there was a little bit of word of mouth spreading there. It's 2012. We're still making next to nothing, but it was a little bit of side money, doing something I liked, but the main thing was I was still coaching football, still running their speed program, and heading in the direction I wanted. I'd set a goal. I wanted to be a head coach before I was 30. I wanted to be a head coach in my 20s, and after that Dayton Christian job, I got my first head coaching job at 28 years old after 8 years of coordinating defense, and I got that head coaching job at Ponitz down in Dayton Public Schools, which is where I work my day job as well. At that time, same year, same time, we put in our garage gym. Got to the point we're driving to Miami East, we're driving to Troy. I'm driving all over the place, the Inglewood Dam, Vandalia Dam, people's houses in the morning and at night, and it just made sense to spend a little bit of money and put a garage gym in so I could train more people each night instead of using drive time from place to place. That it added up to a whole nother session that we could do. So the garage gym happened. I'm still on my coaching thing though, and now we have I got the head job down in Dayton, so now this is where the whole average is an epidemic, mask up, you're capable of a heck of a lot more than you'd think started. In 2012, I started my master's degree in sports sciences and recreation through Ohio University. I was a head football coach. I was running the Vargo train thing. It was starting to take off a little bit. And I'm a teacher in the daytime. So my days usually started about 5 a.m. with some swimmers, doing dry land stuff in the garage. I go to my teaching job till about 3:45. Then I go to football practice at 3:45, and we would have practice. After practice, I would go train basketball kids, football, whatever, in the garage in the evening, and sometimes made trips up to Troy Christian to train their junior high and some high school athletes that were interested in the program. Did that for 2 years, and really when everything kind of took a turn was in 2014. So 2014, I've been coaching for 10 years now. I'm a head coach. Still chasing that whole be a head coach, win 5 state championships. Weight room's obviously really important in that. My 2 years as a head coach were very different than my 8 years as a coordinator. It was no longer football. It was a lot of parents, a lot of administrative stuff, a lot of teachers, a lot of complaining, and every day of practice there was something went wrong. And I'd leave practice and I would go to one of our kids' games, or I would train and there was something positive. And then I would go to practice, there's something going on, not football related. This is not why I got into all this. And then I would go to the training or games afterwards, and there's all this positive about how much somebody had improved, how much they had changed. And eventually, after so many times of that, I looked at this head coaching thing and said, why am I doing this? I think I found my strength in the strength training by chance, because I was following my football passion. I was all in with my football coaching, doing everything I could with the clinics, in the off season, meeting with coaching staffs, coaches on offenses, defenses, special teams, breaking down our own film all off season long, developing a program. And what I found was in the public school systems, you're dealing with the entire public, and the entire public does not buy in to the way you're doing things. And you can't be really selective just because people don't buy into that. They're a part of your team. And I think it takes a special athletic director, a special community, maybe a selective community. College level can do it. You have to be selective if you're going to be hunting something great. And you cannot be selective in a public school, because a lot of times administrators, principals, ADs, I don't know what exactly it is, but they buy in or buy out of what we're trying to do as a program, and coddle the parent, the teacher, the whoever, the board member, and the temporary, and we don't get the result. And it's the same thing in the training and why we do things. We operate the way we do. We're able to be selective here. If you don't do things a certain way, if you don't commit to the program, you got to go. And in every area, I think there's a way to do things. I don't know if you're an astronaut, there's a way to be a good astronaut. There's a way to be a bad one. There's a way to train and be a good athlete. There's a way to be a bad one. There's a process you follow to improve and to be your best, which is eventually great. And if you're not following that, I don't see the purpose in doing it. It's a different kind of way of doing things. And I was able to do that here in this company, and it takes us all the way up to 2000. Where are we at now? So 2012, we established Vargo Train LLC. We'd really been training with athletes and teams since about 2008. Obviously, I was just the football team, and then I was the head strength coach at Troy Christian. Whoever wanted to come in, I'd put together something for you from 04 to 08. But 08 to 12, we started kind of going on our own, being private. 2012, we established Vargo Train LLC, and we are in our garage. And then in 2015, we were 20 to 30 deep in the garage. A lot of people and a lot of poster mentality, which is the people that got us our launch, our liftoff, the Lauren Peters, the Haley Prince, the Zach Blair, the Kendra Beckman, those kids and how they improved themselves. Everybody wanted a piece of it, but they didn't want to do what they did. They wanted to walk around the get on our level. They wanted to walk around the, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm a part of it. But when it came down to making tough decisions and what we call mask up, overcome, ditch your excuses about I'm tired, I got homework, I got projects. Get on our level is not we succeed, be like us. Get on our level is how we work. Get on our level is about the time I put in to my studies, the time I put into my skill work, the time I put into everything, and we still get the training done, the extra training. I do the training at my school and this. I'm tired, I got a lot on my plate, but get on our level is we don't use that as a reason out. We find a way, not a way out. And in 2014, we had a lot of poster mentality, people that wanted to be a part of the program but didn't want to do the work it took to move forward. And so we sat everybody down about the exact same time almost that we're buying the athletic proving grounds facility. And we told them this, we got to change things. If we're going to stick around and we're going to be doing this the right way, because I left football because it wasn't the right way. Like if I'm going to do something the wrong way and still maybe try to enjoy it, it's going to be football. I'm not going to be around here playing with people. I didn't invite you to come train with us. So that's why I left football. That's why I stopped training in 2009, 2010. Didn't have the right mindset with the right people. It's the right people in the program. Big things happen. You don't have to be talented. You got to have some work ethic. So 2014, we had a lot of people who didn't have that. And we said, this is how things are going to be. We established minimum days. We didn't have minimum days before 2014. People were self-driven, self-motivated, and we needed to get back on that track. We committed to that. We lost $30,000 within that first year, that 12 months. And it was just, part of what's going to happen. We overinflated. We had too many people, and we needed to establish some standards. And if you can't abide by those standards, you got to go. And we ended up losing at least half our clients, maybe a little bit more, over $30,000 at the end of the day. And we're moving into this brand new facility with a second mortgage, second electric bill, and everything else. 175 feet and half court. 175 feet and half court. We'll do a podcast on that. Anybody that saw that Facebook or Instagram live, you probably know what I'm talking about. But and sticking to these principles and sticking to sound science and sticking to data collection and improving our program from the very beginning in 2004, and then the bigger, faster, stronger certifications over to ISSA, and then the bachelor's, and then the master's in sports sciences, and all along there, you're looking at 13 years of data collection. I can pull out a 2004 folder, and I've got Chris Tran, Bailey Wills, Jordan Francis, those names. We've got what they did, how we did our program back then, and then we can go all the way through and look at how it's evolved. And that's the one thing is, bringing us all the way to today, 2017, and we've got a very successful senior class, a talented junior class, and new sophomores, and then a freshman, sophomore, 8th grade group, the young hustle that I am very excited about because of the way they do things. We have been hyper-focused on how, and we finally got a big group of young ones that don't know any better. They came into it that way because of the people in the past, and we built this thing, we got it rolling. So that's where we came from. That's who we are. Started in our Honda, really, back in the gyms, back in the home-to-home fitness. We evolved from a strength and conditioning coach to people want a little bit of help on the side. And then from there is where the program really started to kick in, and we built a thing. All right, so that's the first Get On Our Level podcast. A little bit of background, who we are. See you next time.